Hi guys, so I wanted to start a series of videos in which I recommend to you 3 books in one video, either within a similar genre or containing similar themes or that give me similar feelings, that I think if you like one in the bunch you'll like the others, or if you want a book in that vein then you might want to check out one or more of the books I mention. Unfortunately I haven't managed to come up with an incredibly witty name for the series, so for now consider it 3 recommendations. But in this video, if you haven't gathered by now, I'm going to recommend to you 3 books, all of which I feel have similar themes, plot lines, characters, or some other thing that ties them together, which means I think if you like one, or you like the sound of one, you'll like them all, or they're all at least worth giving a shot. So in this video, the 3 books I have to recommend to you all take place in either the 19th or very early 20th century. They focus on female characters, although one of them does have multiple perspectives that do include men, but there is always a female at the centre of the plot. And they all deal with the treatment of women's health issues in these time periods and touch on issues of hysteria. And to different extents, they all have elements of kind of unsettling mysteries within them. So without further ado, let's get into the 3 books. I think I'll go for the one I've read most recently first, and that is Bodies of Water by V.H. Leslie. Now this actually has 2 protagonists, one of whom is located in the 1800s, the other who is located in the 21st century. And it flips between those 2 characters' perspectives, who both are resident in the same building but just over 100 years apart. Evelyn is a patient at a water treatment facility in the 1800s, and Kirsten is a recently single woman who has moved into a new block of flats that have just been built in the old building that used to be the water treatment facility. And this building is located on the outskirts of London along the River Thames. It's a very eerie book, and it's probably the most unnerving and unsettling of the 3 books I have to recommend to you. It might even be a really good Halloween read. It's definitely makes you on edge, and throughout reading it, it was a very vivid world that the author created. Although it's only 130 pages, like I said, it was just a very vivid read for me. I felt like I could see everything very vividly and almost feel the things that were going on, because there's a lot of references to water and water seeping into your home and into your clothes and into your skin, and it made me feel like the book was kind of seeping into me at the same time. The water both embodies this severe medical treatment side and also quite a spiritual, ritualistic, legendary side, and we get to follow the effect it has on both the characters in their different time periods as the past seems to seep into the future, a bit like water. And yeah, I really enjoyed this book, and if that sounds like your cup of tea, I would highly recommend you checking it out. But the next book I have to recommend to you on that note, and also almost continuing on with the water-like theme, is Elijah's Mermaid by S.A. Fox. As the title suggests here, a bit of mermaidry, and actually the Thames plays a part in this book as well. Both the books touch on women drowning themselves in the Thames. In this story, the central character is really Pearl, who was found abandoned as a baby next to the Thames, and she has webbed feet. She's then raised in a brothel, and when she comes of age, the brothel sells her as a mermaid to the highest bidder. And it's all about obsession, it's about the man who buys her, who is an artist, and it mixes culture and art and these kind of seedy understories of London in the 1800s. And our other 2 main characters are Lily and Elijah, who are orphan twins who are far more fortunate than Pearl and are adopted by their wealthy grandfather, and obviously have a much more different upbringing, but their lives begin to intertwine with that of peril. And there's another building in this one that plays a large part in the story, which is a women's mental institution for women who are suffering from hysteria. So again, that plays a large role in this story, and it's a very beautiful story. It's a very slow-paced story. It made me feel as though it had been written in the 1800s almost. It really captured that when I was reading it. And the twins' grandfather is also a writer, and it dabbles into kind of folklore and mermaids, like you might have been able to guess, and literature, which I think brings me on quite nicely to my third recommendation, which is The Book Collector by Alice Thompson. So this book also interweaves a lot of fairy tale and folklore and literature into the storyline. It's very heavy on the fairy tale inspiration in this one. This one's set just at the turn of the 20th century, so the early 1900s, and it's about a young woman who marries a man she doesn't really know much about when she meets him, and doesn't know much more when she marries him, but they just instantly take to one another. So they get married quite quickly and she has a child quite quickly, but she then goes on to suffer what we now would consider postpartum depression after her son is born. And it's about her trying to separate what's in her head and what's the illness and what is actually really going on, and is there really a mystery to be solved, and can she trust her husband, who she didn't really know that well. And you as a reader don't know exactly where you stand either, what's real, what isn't real. Main character Violet's husband is a book collector, where the title comes from, and that's where they meet in a bookshop, and he has this massive big library, but he has this one big book of fairy tales which he's incredibly precious about, and he keeps in a safe, and Violet wants to read it, but he doesn't want her to touch it. He wants to keep books as items, and he doesn't really want them to be read. He doesn't have the same relationship with books as Violet does, and that's the first point in which Violet starts to wonder who the man she married really was. But in the meantime, those around her see a woman who is suffering from what was termed as hysteria at the time, and that dubs her as irrational and not worth listening to. And sadly, because of this, Violet is again put into a women's mental health facility with a diagnosis of hysteria. And in the meantime, there are some murders happening in her local village, and I would say the sea is still definitely a theme in this book, as her home is very near the coastline. And if that all sounds good to you, then I would highly recommend checking out all of these books, and if you've read one of them and have really enjoyed it, then it might be worth checking out one of the other two. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please do let me know, so I know whether to do more of them in the future. I think it's quite a fun way to recommend books and just talk a bit more about the books I've got I maybe haven't talked about as much. So until next time guys, happy reading, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye! So I was lucky enough to have spent 2 wonderful days over the past week with lots of other booktubers book shopping, and naturally that has resulted in a small pile of books which I have to show you. So I thought, hey, let's do a book haul, which is the fault of booktubers.